Hi, and welcome to Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. I'm Steve Palmer, and I invite you to join me as we explore the stories behind leaders in the hospitality industry and beyond. Say Grace is a place to reflect, connect, and savor thoughtful narratives. Everyone has a seat at our table. So pull up a chair and let's discover the transformative power of hospitality together. Hey everybody, and welcome to Say Grace. I'm Steve Palmer, and I couldn't be more excited today to be joined by Andrew Carmellini. This is where I read your bio.
Okay, here we go.
I'm delighted to welcome Andrew Carmellini to Say Grace today. Andrew Carmellini is the chef and co-founder of NoHo Hospitality, which operates celebrated restaurants, Locanda Verde, the Dutch, Lafayette, Carne Mare, Bar Primi, as well as restaurants in Miami, Detroit, San Morello at the Shinola Hotel, one of my favorites, and in Nashville. With multiple James Beard Award wins and nominations, he has become a defining figure in American hospitality and modern Italian and American cuisine. Andrew is known for creating restaurants that not only deliver high-level food, but also deeply consider atmosphere, culture, neighborhood, ensuring that every space feels both aspirational and grounded. His culinary identity reflects his rustic Italian roots, New York innovation, and a deep respect for tradition. Andrew, welcome to Say Grace.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm so excited you're here. So you have no idea, because we've only met once or twice, but I have a modern Italian restaurant in Charleston called Indaco that's 13 years old. And it was solely inspired on a meal I had at Locanda Verde.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
When do I collect my royalties?
Yeah, I know. I owe you money. That and A16 in San Francisco. I remember at the time, it felt to me like chefs you were either a northern Italian restaurant or a southern Italian restaurant. There were Chianti baskets and it was kind of the old school, and this term modern Italian came out, and you were, to me, really at the forefront of what it meant to cook Italian food, and so thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Dinner on me. Is that a good enough royalty?
I'll take it.
So tell me, you grew up in Ohio. And
I grew up in South Cleveland, culinary capital of the United States.
Right. And what led you to becoming a chef?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to school. Like college, right after high school, and I loved cooking. Grew up, my mom, grandmother, kind of like typical story there. But my parents they wouldn't use the term foodie because the foodie implies that you have money. We didn't have any money, but right. They, for whatever reason, their background with their parents, eating like whole foods and healthy foods, especially like in the 70s, were really like important to them. They would always say like the good stuff.
Right.
They didn't want additives. We had a garden in the background. My mom, used to bake like whole grain breads and those kind of things.
Oh, wow.
And that was just not necessarily from a pretension point of view. It was more just kind of like they wanted the good products. They didn't even call them products. They just wanted to make sure they had like the good stuff.
Right.
And they didn't want to eat any like fast food or anything like that. So that kind of developed that love of food for sure. Yeah.
What was your first cooking job?
14 years old, the Brecksville Party Center.
Okay.
And I was just bored. I was bored in school. I've been a musician since I'm a little kid, and so we had bands and stuff like that. Been in bands. I was playing sports in school, but I wanted to make money, and I just started washing dishes. Yeah.
The minute you said you were a musician, it all sort of clicked.
Yeah.
Because when you look at some of your projects, you definitely have a love for music. That makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, for better or worse, between the two kind of like venues. But yeah, I just started doing it because it wasn't for a love of food. It was just to make money, right?
Right.
And I think the task-oriented aspect of the work was good for me when I was like a kid. Things have to get done in a certain amount of time. They were really great, the family that owned that catering company, and they gave me beer when I was 14. So that was really important to me.
Yeah. I was dishwashing at a Chinese restaurant at 13, and they would give me beer. They would give me beer.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, the beer helps.
No, but then I worked. Then I was like, I started helping out in the kitchen a little bit, and then I worked for my first real chef when I was 17, who still owns the restaurant in Vermilion, Ohio, called Chez Francois. It's Matt and John, very successful French restaurant there. And he worked in the kitchen every day. He was an American guy, but this is late 80s.
Right.
He was in Ohio and getting lobsters from Maine, and Chef's Garden just got started. They were down the street. We were one of his first customers, and he used to use dry aged meat, and so that was kind of like my first entry to that.
In the 80s.
In the 80s,
That's
yeah, when I was 17 years old, yeah.
Right. And what led you to come? I mean, did you say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I've got to move to New York? How did you?
World famous record producer did not have the same ring than it did. But I went to Catholic college prep school, so saying that I was the only person on a graduating class of 290 kids that wasn't going to college. Oh, wow. And I was going to New York, and I was going to go to cooking school, and people thought I was crazy. I might as well have told them I was going to be a priest or go in the military. And that's it. And I went to school a year and a half. I was in Manhattan cooking at San Domenico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, San Domenico.
What an icon.
Yeah.
At that time. But was this still the late 80s?
That was by the time I got down here, it was 1990. And San Domenico at the time was the best Italian restaurant in the country by far. And I was the only American working in an all-Italian kitchen.
How'd you talk them into that?
Why hiring me?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's such a kind of interesting trajectory. My job at cooking school for 2 years I was private chef to Mario Cuomo, Governor Mario Cuomo, which is crazy because I got that job when I was 18, which I just I look at my I don't know. It's just I'm not even sure how it happened, but that was I was a weekend job, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, private chef for the governor, and when I was getting ready to move to the city, I was going to go work at Boulay. I was already working at Boulay for free, just on the weekends, because it was the restaurant in Manhattan then. And it was Matilda Cuomo, Mario's wife, that talked me in. She's like, "You're Italian. You should work for Italians."
I was going to ask you if your last name had any.
Yeah. And no, I came down there. I talked to Tony May, and that's it. Yeah. 2 months later, I was working pasta station at San Domenico.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you? What was the thing at that time? Was where you are today? Was that the goal? I mean, when you started cooking,
there was no goal. I mean, also, I have to understand, as you know, it was such a different world in the business then. There was, in Manhattan, there were some American restaurants, There was Oriole was brand new, Charlie Palmer's restaurant on the Upper East Side, which is a big deal. River Cafe was still relatively new. Charlie Trotter was just getting started in Chicago and getting national acclaim for doing a fine dining American restaurant and kind of defining what that is. But up until then, especially in Manhattan, you were either a restaurant with a L-E or a law in front of it, or you were a restaurant with some vowels at the end of it, and you were Italian, and that was it. Unless there was an old school steakhouse or old school kind of Italian American.
Sure.
And certainly, if you were serious about food or interested in pursuing this, there was only one place to go, and that was Manhattan. There was no nationally recognized Charleston food scene.
No.
There was no nationally recognized Nashville. Food and Wine magazine, which was brand new, Amex publication, was not running. Indianapolis, the next great food city.
Right.
It's just there wasn't that awareness, there wasn't that volume, there wasn't that kind of culture. So,
Was that intimidating for you at all? A kid from Ohio walking into San Domenico, or were you too young? Or was it just I'm going to do this no matter what?
There was a little bit of fearlessness in it. I remember I took myself to Le Cirque when I was 18 years old for lunch one day. So this is original Le Cirque on 65th Street. So this is when it was the restaurant in the country for sure, and Daniel Blue was the chef. He was relatively new as the chef there, and this was the ladies at lunch, high end of Reagan era 80s.
Right.
And I pulled up, I parked on Park Avenue and like 64th Street, right on the street, and in my 1973 Ford Maverick, and took myself to lunch.
I love that. Do you remember what you ate?
I did. I can tell you exactly what I ate because I have a very, very keen memory on all the meals. And we had potato wrapped sea bass with red wine sauce. We had chocolate Jacques Therese chocolate stove, and I had a consomme kind of Celestine type of thing with like diced vegetables and stuff inside it.
Wow.
I remember they brought the wine list to me, and I didn't know anything about wine, like nothing. And other than my uncles made it, and it was really bad. And I didn't know what it was, so I ordered a Manhattan because I was in Manhattan, and I heard of Manhattan. And after two of those, I was completely wasted when I left. But it was it was a very funny experience. It was like a Thursday, so, and it was just like me by myself. But I didn't show up with a tie. You had to have a tie. And they wouldn't let me sit down with a tie, so they gave me a bolo tie.
I love that.
Yeah, ponytail and a bolo tie. I'm sure I looked pretty good.
And you, so the great part of that story for me is that you ended up working at Le Cirque.
I did, yeah, but that was much later. I did,
right,
much later, yeah.
Was that when it was at the Bloomberg building?
No, this was I helped close down the original location, and then when they helped them move to the New York Palace Hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you worked for Daniel Blue,
Mm-hmm.
you worked at Avoce, but you also spent time in Italy and cooking in France.
Yep.
How do those two experiences differ?
France and Italy, or New York
Or
and
Europe and America? As a young chef at that time, how was the impression?
Well, that's also changed a lot too. It was really important to me. The first time I went to Italy with my family when I was a teenager, and which also like helped me like open my mind a little bit to the food culture, like restaurant culture, because we're from Friuli,
okay,
in Tuscany, right? And the other Italian kids in my neighborhood they're all Calabrian, Sicilian, and from Naples, like their family. So the stuff that when we used to go over their house was very different from the stuff that was served in like our house,
right?
Which is polenta and cabbage, basically.
Yeah.
And if you go to Friuli, they're eating white asparagus. They're making a type of pretzel bread. They're making a sauce to eat with sausage that's made with fermented turnips called bravida. This is not what you think of as quote unquote Italian cooking, right? And even in Tuscany, like the food in Tuscany, it's very soft. There's not a lot of herbs, vinegar, texture, juxtaposition. It's very, very soft cooking.
Right.
Where Southern Italian food, as it morphed into Italian American food, is it's like big umami bombs with like tons of tomato and cheese and anchovy and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in this country, more excelled and pushed up to the umami levels than it is in Italy.
Right.
Because that's what you need to do. So, anyways, that first trip to Europe was, I needed to understand where things came from, because I also grew up with like a family that was, especially the uncles, like, this is the way they do it in the old country.
Right.
It was like different from what was happening in the restaurants I was working at. So it became to be honest with you, like an obsession to understand where stuff came from. But that was like a personal obsession for cooking, and then it extended to wine, after that.
Right.
It's hard to understand now. It's like different. I thought that was really, really important, especially I still think it's very important to understand before you like. If that's your family's background, but even if not, it's if you're just the white kid that makes some Vietnamese dishes, but has never been to Vietnam and doesn't understand the topography, the difference between the north and the south, the difference between the coastal regions and the more kind of like jungle regions, and how that affects, regionally, like the food. The same thing with Italy. It's hard to understand Barolo unless you go to Lamora and really understand, understand where Canubi is, understand where Barbaresco is, understand where, how everything comes together and how it comes together in the cooking. That's what I always felt, and it helped me give me a better understanding of that. And a lot of that France too comes from restaurant work, but also just comes from travel and eating out and
staying curious.
My best, I was in Europe living and working for 2 years, and my best experiences with the 3 months at the end of it, because I was done. I was I capped out on restaurant work and staging and everything, and I leased a car for I did a long-term lease for almost 3 months, and basically kind of drew a big circle on south of Paris, north of Marseille, from the Atlantic to the Alps, and just drove around for 3 months.
Wow.
And my only mantra was never to get on the freeway and to never stay in a hotel. And so I just stayed at farm stays for 3 months, and I did everything. I worked harvest in Cahors. I helped make bar Armagnac with the producer in the Gers.
Wow.
I stuffed geese to make foie gras in Languedoc-Roussillon. I made Cantal in the Auvergne. I did all kinds of stuff, just randomly, just kind of showing up at places and talking to people, and it was great. I'd love to do it again.
This is why I love doing a podcast, just hearing these stories. I talk a lot about staying curious and being a student and looking and going and seeing and eating, and I think that's so important. Especially,
well, it's interesting, especially as it relates to the business of food and the business of restaurants, is that I've heard that there are other ways to make a living, possibly even possibly even some of them easier.
Right.
So if you don't have a good base on the other thing, meaning you don't enjoy the work, or you don't have a passion for the food part of it, or the wine part of it, or the beverage part of it, I'm unsure why anyone would do it.
Right. Amen.
And there's a lot of that, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in the business, and because that's always the thing that keeps me going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I still love waiting tables after all these years, 40 years later. So prior to NoHo, you were the CDC at Café Boulud, and lots of accolades. And Gavin Kaysen and I have talked about this, about sort of the headiness of being in that kind of environment before you've done your own thing. How important was that? Were the stars? Were the Michelin? How important at that point were you my next step is I'm going out on my own and I'm building a name, or was it still just sort of I'm got my head down and I'm cooking my ass off?
Yeah, I was before Danielle recruited me to open Café Boulud in 1998, I had been already line cooking for 10 years in New York,
right.
And some sous chef years there also. And, I took that job when I was 29. I was CDC when I was 29 there. And, again, it was really just less about trying to prove to the world anything, but just being good at what you do. And, obviously you can't do that yourself.
Right.
So you need to surround yourself with a team and recruit people that are also interested in pursuing that. I think that comes from my family's in the marble and terrazzo business. Okay. All my uncles and father, they all went to the Scuola di Mosaico in Friuli. So they're craftsmen. I think that, if I were to look back, was a big kind of influence on me, and they were a rough crowd. My dad's last day before he retired, he actually went back on Saturday. Him and his brother used to work together, and he kind of fixed something his brother worked on because it wasn't done right. And then they didn't talk for like 2 years over it.
Oh, wow.
So there's that kind of like drive to métier, if you will, of the work that was always really interesting to me. I mean, James Beard, Food and Wine, eventually Michelin. When Michelin started, they just came and ate our dishes, and we served them. There was I didn't advocate. I didn't, it was a less political time also. So we were just really we just made nice food, and I didn't even know who anybody was. I didn't know who journalists were. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any
There
history.
wasn't a strategy.
No, there was no strategy. There was no I had no Instagram.
Right.
Like it was just different.
Right.
There was I wasn't brand building. I wasn't out there. You just did good work. And eventually people noticed it.
Right.
I missed that a little bit because I feel we've moved on from a merit-based society to a narrative-based society. I see that on all kind of levels in the business and outside the business. But I'm happy and proud that I was able to do it that way.
I was doing an orientation the other day, and I said, when I was a waiter, there was no internet. And I looked around, and there were just, they just couldn't imagine life before Instagram and foodies. And so then the big break happened, and this is the story as I know it. I may have my facts wrong. Greenwich Hotels opens, and there was another restaurant there before that didn't work.
Well, it was a long history before we even got there.
Okay, I knew I didn't have it right.
I'd been a chef de cuisine for Danielle at Cafe Bleu, and I actually I was happy what I was doing. I would have stayed working. I'd still be working for Danielle, to be honest with you. Like I was happy with the work, but he was expanding and doing other restaurants, and I wasn't maybe going to move from a single restaurant to like help them run the organization.
Right.
So it was kind of a natural progression to maybe do something else. And I saved up some money. I raised a little bit of dough, and I was going to open up the original Bar Primi on 10th Street across from Chickalicious, where Chickalicious used to be. And I started to negotiate that, and I started to get that in play. Again, I just trial by error.
Right,
no one ever
course.
shows you how to do any of this stuff.
No.
And this group from England came along, threw a ton of money my way that was a ridiculous amount of money to pay someone, to be honest with you, just for one restaurant. And they were putting a big investment into the States to do a bunch of other, and that's how a Voce happened.
Right.
And that partnership did not work out for a variety of reasons. And then after 2 years, I went there, got a Michelin star, New York Times 3 stars.
I had a great meal there while you were there. Yeah, no, it was
thank you.
phenomenal.
No, we had a great run, a great opening. I won't get into the details, but it ended up in like some lawsuits. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this for real now, but I'm really going to go do it by myself. Luke Ostrom, who we've been cooking together since Cafe Bleu, was we were going to do it together. Then he was just chef de cuisine, kind of role, and we were going to go do something.
Right.
And it started to roll quicker than I thought it was going to. Went back to Bar Primi to open it up. Oddly enough, ended up being on 10th Street again. And then I signed a deal in Vegas before I even had a restaurant in New York City.
Right.
And I was just going to this like little pasta shop on 10th Street. And then, I was, we were in legal to help Jay-Z develop a new hotel in Chelsea. And then all this stuff was happening like way too quick.
Right.
But it was good because I didn't have a lot of money to do things with. And then the financial crash happened in 2008, which destroyed all of that.
Yep.
And I had known Bob as a customer, Bob De Niro as a customer from Cafe, because he used to come there. And he was just opened the Greenwich. He was having an issue there with the restaurant that was there. It was very new. It was only 6 months old.
Right.
And we took it over, and that's how Locanda Verde happened. But it happened very quick. Like, the deal was done in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't get in there for like years. Mickey and Charleston would have to call for me. I'd be like, "Can you get me into Locanda Verde?"
Well, yeah, it was it's magic.
It's still magic, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean
Thank you
that.
very much.
It's one of my favorite restaurants in America.
Thank you. Well, it's restaurants, as you know, there's no recipe. Sometimes it comes together like out of thin air. Sometimes you have to really work at it. And Locanda, given it was, still the financial crisis, it wasn't expensive.
Right.
It was very stylish. I think the fact that we, the great kind of like, big super movies of the 70s, also not a great financial time. We used to bring in what's the one with the W, and he had all the actors in it, and they're driving through Southern California. There's the Treasure, Mad World.
Yeah.
Where there's like all those actors inside it. So there's all those kind of movies.
Yeah.
Locanda was a little bit like that. It was like Bob De Niro and me, and I brought in Luke and Josh Picard, who was like, I've known for years. He was a downtown restaurant guy, and it just kind of like ended up being a similar mix. And it was a big hit.
That's magic, isn't it? I mean, like you have opened a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot premeditate some of that. It just
there's
just happens.
A million things.
And when it does, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Some of the best meals. I mean, my wife. I bring my Italian chefs every time we come to New York.
Thank you.
We got to go to Locanda Verde.
Oh, thank you.
I really, and I'm Bar Primi, all of them. So from there, did you think you would have 15 restaurants? Did you think what kind of, was it just sort of, for me, it was very organic. It's like, okay, this worked. I've been thinking about this idea.
Yeah,
especially in New York, for you to.
Yeah, I always thought of it as, my last name's Carmellini, and Italian comes easy. I'm going to Italy tomorrow.
Oh, good. Jealous.
Not a food trip, though. I'm going for the Italian Grand Prix, but I'm going to see
I was in Miami last weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very different. This is going to be in Imo. It's one of the old school tracks.
Right,
so it's like, I like that legacy.
Have you been to Monza?
I have been to Monza, yeah.
I want to get Shelby, my wife, and I were like, I don't want to go to Monaco.
Yeah, Monza's better racing than Imola. Imola's it's a smaller track, a little bit a thinner track, so these big cars don't really work on it. But Monza's, it's good also.
We could throw this
That's
on. We
another-
could just talk about it. I'm a big car. I was gonna get to. I know you're a big car guy. I'm a huge car guy. Yeah.
Anyways,
growing a restaurant group.
Yeah, growing a restaurant group. Very organic. Yeah.
And what do you think as a chef? I mean, obviously it shifts, right? When you're on a line every night, and then you go to 2, and then you go to 3. What skills did you, how was that different than being a chef at 1?
Well, we're 3 partners now. The same when we did Locanda, and Luke kind of takes the care of the operations and does a lot of the branding work with his wife now, and helps do all that, and Josh takes care of the front end of the business. And all the back end on the finance and HR,
right.
And you need that. You need to hire smart for that, right?
Right.
Because that expansion doesn't really happen without that. Which has left me to kind of really concentrate on the people part, the customer part, and the food part.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's hard to do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not impossible.
Was it hard for you to let go a little bit of the food and let other people, maybe not?
Oh, well, that's a different. Yeah, well, as soon as you go from 1 store to 2 stores, then your
right.
life completely changes.
Absolutely.
Because you can't be, in 1 to 24, which is all the properties together, 24 different venues now. Yeah, you just.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
If you want one, let me know.
Yeah. I've got one I can give you.
Yeah, you have to think differently, and that took me like 4 or 5 years to get comfortable with it, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when Lafayette opened, and I loved that restaurant, by the way. And the review came out.
Mm-hmm.
The 0-star review.
1 star.
One star.
Never got 0 star.
Not 0 star. Sorry, 1 star. And what I remember, so I was in that restaurant a couple weeks after,
Mm-hmm.
and what blew me away was the resilience of your staff. They were not deterred, and I've probably eaten at Lafayette 12 times since, and you've crushed it. You've done well.
Well, it's interesting.
Because that was at a time a little bit before social, where the reviews, I mean, they still matter. They do matter, but
yeah, listen, you never want anyone to say anything bad about
Right.
what a restaurant is. But the interesting thing about Lafayette is that it's 10 years later. It's like nice to be able to like look at it from afar. Is that some of my like more favorable reviews since I started on my own from everybody else were astounding at Lafayette.
right.
Platt, who was always cranky before,
Right.
was cranky about the Dutch. He was cranky about Locanda Verde when I opened. Bruni, when I opened up Locanda Verde, wish I would have done more fine dining, especially since he gave me 3 stars twice and was about to give me even bigger accolade at Cafe. And, unfortunately having like history can work against you.
Right.
So,
yeah.
like
Sure.
when no one knows who you are, there's usually you have more people behind you in a certain way. But Lafayette seemed to, we're 10 years later, we're still there. Mother's Day, for the day, we cooked for 1,600 people.
Wow. It's a beautiful place.
Thank you. But I don't think we've done it. We've changed it much since then. But from the review time, we haven't. It wasn't like there was a big pivot necessarily.
No, I know that.
The restaurants.
That was evident.
Yeah, the restaurant's the same. It's actually, the bakery, which was kind of like just adjunct, kind of like part of it when we opened. Just for the neighborhood, really, because I wanted to do French pastry and like old style French breads, and which also, we had an amazing pastry chef when we opened, and amazing baker that worked for us for almost the whole time until a couple months ago. Didn't get a lot of attention. I think it was Adam Platt that gave us an amazing review, and then talked about the quote unquote, not that I don't ever forget this stuff, but expensive pastries at the bakery.
Right.
People are still lining up outside because of our round Supreme croissants. We make 1,100 croissants of those round croissants a day now, which is a whole different thing entirely. So the bakery now has become its own adjunct kind of thing, which is interesting. No one, you never want anything to say anything bad, but the single review, I definitely, no one under 45 is reading that anymore.
Right.
Which makes me like yearn for that a little bit also.
Sure.
But at the same time,
Right.
You just brought up something that was, my only really kind of like poor review we got didn't, I don't know, we're still here.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It was so impressive, and the way you didn't change who you were. It left a mark on me, Andrew, as I hadn't opened a restaurant at that point of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And have since gotten bad reviews, and it is.
I haven't got one after. So
yeah, and I just remember again. You've inspired me without you had no idea who I was. It just was such you just put your head down and do the work. You have to be self-aware if there are areas that you need to improve on, right?
Well, sometimes in the in the business, especially like then, you can get wrapped up in all this like various media hoopla, which has less importance now than it did maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago for sure, because the media companies themselves are like hollowed out organizations, you know,
sure.
And this kind of more democratic, for better or worse, you know, amalgam of online reviews, Google, the Resi, you know, trip, like all of this, like put together. Who pays attention to what? I still don't really understand.
You're right. Yeah.
And it's interesting how people find you these days. Yeah.
What's the thing you're most proud of as a chef?
You know, some people ask you like, what's your favorite children? I try to like, we put the same effort and same love into like every property, whether it's, you know, a hotel situation or just like a burger thing or whatever. I think it's just still doing it with, it's not like one like thing. It's just being able to do it, and I think the style that we do it in, which I think is on a high pro level, which I think the customer, like, people understand that. They necessarily don't understand it's me, but I think we have a great team. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know for me, and listening to you, for you, the power of mentorship shaped a lot of our generation.
Sure.
You see employees hopping around from place to place more than I feel like in our day. Mm-hmm. How important do you think mentorship is now for you to mentor the younger generation?
It's just happening in a different way. Yeah, I question it a little bit. I think back of the house is about the same.
Okay.
As far as like people like hopping around and not hopping around, even though well, it depends on what kind of restaurant. I find in the more fine dining, you see a little bit less movement than you will in like mid-level casual kind of like dining.
Right.
You know, mentorship just happens differently now, I think. You know, I try to have good impact on everyone. Anyone who's done openings especially knows that I'm like there working with everybody, for better or worse. You know, I'll pick up the broom before anyone. You know, Cafe Carmellini, the first year I closed with everybody else.
Right.
For a long time, 6 months, 9 months. Also because I still like it.
Right.
You know, and I think that's, you know, good for camaraderie and but yeah, mentorship, it's a faster pace than it used to be, that's for sure. Yeah.
Has anyone left you to open their own restaurant and become a big success?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a lot, you know, over the years, and even some. There's a woman down in Naples now, Kayla, who's up for a James Beard Awards this year. That, you know, she used to work for us at the Dutch, like back in the day, and she's gone down to Florida and made quite a name for herself. She's now a semifinalist this year. So, yeah, you know, like, yeah, we've had a lot.
That's gratifying.
Yeah.
I just had somebody leave and go to Nashville and open their own place, and
nice.
And he's hit a big home run, and super proud of him.
Oh, nice. Who's that?
His name's John Murray. The restaurant's NoHo.
NoHo. Okay,
it's in
cool.
East Nashville.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of an Asian street food, and it was cool.
Yeah, I know.
The chef there got a best chef Southeast.
Oh,
James
cool.
Beard's.
Yeah, my favorite kind of success stories is that you know, some you know, people that you pulled out of bad places.
Yeah.
And or help them pull out of bad places, and you think would be a complete fuck up, and then all of a sudden, you know, you see them, they're on TV, they have 2 restaurants, they're like, you kind of lost track of them, and that's good to see.
Yeah.
You know, and that, I'm not saying that happens often, but when it does, it's good to see. Especially since, you know, the industry attracts kind of like a lot of the same personalities.
We're the island of misfit toys.
Oh yeah, 100%. And still does. So it's good to have. It's good to see that through. Yeah.
What's a day off in New York like for you?
It depends, It just, my wife is a big culture addict, so and I like art and I love live music, so we'll try to see. Day off is interesting though, because when I'm in the city, which is you're so intertwined with the restaurants,
Right.
So even on a day off, maybe it's a Wednesday, and because you went to go see a show,
Right.
so you schedule yourself off to be a show, but you're still making reservations, you're still checking in. I didn't work Mother's Day this year. I feel after 35 years, I didn't work Mother's Day, and but it was very, very busy everywhere. And but still, I was like checking in, to see how it went, and and seeing, if there were any bigger issues we could send some people over to help with, or whatever.
Right.
So it's just part of the restaurant business if you're good at it.
Yeah.
Especially in the city, because I live in Chelsea. I have restaurants in Nomad, Hudson Yards, Soho, NoHo, Tribeca. So it's just you're surrounded by restaurants and customers, and it's how it is.
Tell me about the decision to open a second Locanda Verde.
Well, originally, Locanda was a big hit, so naturally there was maybe this idea to open up other locations of Locanda. Bob and the partnership at the Greenwich at that time saw Locanda as part of the hotel, which, success for a hotel restaurant, especially in New York, is that people don't understand it's a hotel restaurant.
Right.
And which was great for Locanda because we have a separate entrance. We're really part of the neighborhood. And so there was going to be some other Greenwich hotels around. We were looking at Los Angeles. Shanghai was on the books. There was something down. There was South America. There was some stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there was other locations in the book that would be other Locandas connected because we were one thing. Time went on. Throw COVID in there.
Right.
Hudson Yards, which got a lot of hate, even from myself when it first opened. I said no to a lot of things there in the beginning. But, now New York changes, definitely changes over time. And 10 years later, it's really matured as it's very busy there.
Right.
There's a lot of office tenants. And we're not in the retail there. We're not in the mall.
Okay.
Which is really important to me because all of our places are on corners.
Right.
They have that neighborhood feel. And we had this tremendous corner there in Hudson Yards, right across from the park where the 7 train is. So it's a special entrance.
Right.
It's a special, so that means something to me. So that's why it kind of came together. And it's the kind of thing where we signed there to do. We said, okay, we can do something Italian here. They wanted something Italian.
Right.
A lot of the senior leadership at BlackRock come to my restaurants. BlackRock's the major tenant there. They were like, we love Carmellini. We'd love to have this. So we were going to do something Italian there. And it just seemed, after spending some time there, you think Manhattan's kind of a small town, really, at the heart of it. But the difference between Tribeca and Hudson Yards is it's far away. No one from Tribeca is going to come to Hudson Yards for dinner, and nobody from Hudson Yards is going to go to Tribeca for dinner.
Going well so far?
So far, so good.
Good.
Yeah, it's going good.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a beautiful restaurant. Roman and Williams designed it. It's a stunning restaurant, and it's in a Class A office building.
Right.
But when you walk inside, it feels like you completely different, which was my hesitation from that because then Roman Williams did an amazing job. It feels really good in there.
Is Grandma's ravioli on the menu?
Grandma ravioli is still there. Yeah.
I've had that dish 100 times.
Oh yeah, thank you. That dish. That dish started at Cafe Blue.
Okay.
And coming from a frugal Italian family, also working for French chefs, which are really the cheapest of the bunch.
Right.
You learn how to like utilize different parts of the animal and different scraps from what you were doing.
Right.
So that started. My grandmother used to make meat raviolis, and she was from Friuli, but there was no tomato sauce involved. It was just like butter,
Right.
Parmigiano. That's it. But we always had, trim from short ribs. So I started making them on Sundays. And when we first opened, I used to it was just a special. We called them Sunday ravioli.
Right.
And people went crazy for them. We would sell out. And so it became a thing where people would show up on Sunday to order them, neighborhood people. And, all of a sudden, Mike Nichols would come every, he would come every Sunday just to eat the ravioli, and like Bill Goldman, these are like Oscar-winning guys,
Right.
would show up to just for the ravioli, and and so it became kind of like a thing. And then I started calling my grandmother's raviolis, and then they ended up on the menu.
I love that
Yeah.
dish. What's hospitality mean to you?
Again, cliches, just making people feel at home.
It's not cliche if you mean it.
Yeah, no, I preach that a lot just with our people. It's not necessarily, where you put the fork. It's how you make people,
Yeah.
feel. Harder than ever these days, for
Yeah.
sure. That's for sure. But I think we do a pretty good job on it. Yeah.
What's the thing you fear the most?
What's the thing I fear the most? Well, COVID was that was. I mean, talk about your fears being realized. Like one day you go from 1,500 employees to 7 employees in a matter of like 7 days, right?
Me too. Yeah.
So I mean, not unique in my experience, but once you're in business and you're responsible for, forget the money part, that's its own like thing, but just the people part. We have people that have been working with us for a long time, and that you're part of each other's lives, and you're part of their kids and everything, and so that responsibility that was pretty heavy.
I'd been married 6 months. I took my wife out on the beach
Oh, wow.
and said, "Honey, I have 23 leases, and I owe the bank a lot of money. I'm not sure how this is going to go." Thankfully, the worst did not happen. You and I, throughout this conversation and before we started, talked about how the industry's changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten a lot harder. What's your hope for our industry? As you look out, as you think about the next 5-10 years, what's your hope for hospitality?
I mean, my hope for it, and what's like, the thing, there's a general like split. I think that's already like happening, and I think that some of that has to do with technology, some of it has to do with economics, and with regards to New York, like the places like Florent, for example, which was a restaurant in the meatpacking district, which was a popular late night hangout before Balthazar, before Pastis, before the Neo New York Bistro, call it.
Right.
A place you could go at like 2 a.m. and find Wall Street crowd, transvestites going to the club or coming from the club, and like meatpacker guys all sitting down to eat like a steak frites. It was kind of mediocre, but it was still kind of like the place to kind of like have it. My point being there is that the restaurant as like a cross pollinator of people.
Mm-hmm.
I see culturally really starting to like splinter, where I don't know, that just bugs me sometimes about kind of New York and where it's going a little bit. And that, it has to do with economics a little bit. It also has to do with the volume of restaurants, has to do with changing demographics and the way the neighborhoods change. The social club thing in New York, where it didn't exist before, I think is, splitting customers away from, restaurants in the middle or neighborhood restaurants in the middle, and the wealth of Manhattan is kind of driven that a little bit also. So I'd hate to see a world where like the great neighborhood restaurants is not able to function,
Right.
For a variety of reasons, because either they don't have a social media manager, or because they're not in tune with, the latest TikTok trend, or, they're not connected to different kind of social things that drive business, to just a place to go get a good X, whatever that is.
Right.
But I mean, everything changes. Nothing changes the same forever. So you have to kind of, swim through it and maneuver the best you can. So my hope for the business is that, also the cost of doing business, like it's squeezing out the middle.
Right.
There was an article recently, maybe about a month ago, about the death of the middle class restaurant in America. Not necessarily about Manhattan. It was more about, the suburbs and kind of like on the road, but it has a lot to do with like cities too, because due to the, you're pushing out the middle, so that it's either pushing it to quick service and fast food, reducing employees, reducing costs through automation, or buying pre-made things ahead of time and repurposing them somehow, or pushing to the high-end kind of like membership social club kind of like model. And I don't know. I'm unsure where it ends. Unsure where it ends.
It will be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, things.
Change is inevitable.
Change is inevitable.
Okay, last question, and then I'll send you on your way. The title of my book and this podcast is Say Grace. So I had a marketing person say, that sounds religious. And I'm like, well, in the South on Sunday, you had Sunday supper.
Mm-hmm.
And we would all hold hands and somebody would say grace. And essentially it was, what are we thankful for?
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thankful for?
I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm thankful for the way I grew up, and I've been successful doing what I do.
Right.
Even though like anything else, it has its ups and downs, and I'm also aware through travel and where I come from that I'm thankful for what I have, because there's a lot of people that don't have it. Yeah.
Right. Andrew, thank you for coming on Say Grace.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. If you liked what you heard, tell a friend, share it on the platforms. I'm Steve Palmer. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Say Grace, Food for Thought and Hospitality. We hope you join us next time as we continue to dive deeper into the inspirational stories about the transformative power of hospitality.